You went from peddling supplements out of a basement to having this world-class headquarters with a gym that's nicer than most Gold's gyms I've ever been into, right? But there was a lot that went into that in between. And so when people say he's a success, Nick Bare is a success. I want to be Nick Bare when I grow up. How does Nick Bare view success in your world?
That's a great question. That has evolved over time. Success for me used to be striving and accomplishing. And I could talk about this all day. This is a slippery slope.
Let's start sliding, baby. Let's go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Consistently Good podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Cunningham. I'm super excited, along with BPN, to bring you this podcast. It's going to be a season of back-to-back episodes where we touch on everything from inspirational stories within the sport of running to scientific analysis, coaching tidbits, and everything in between. But first, leading off, we have the man, the myth, the legend. I'd like to call it like the triad of attributes, Mr. Nick Bare. Now, Nick is my friend. He is a really, really good marathoner. I would like to think I had something to do with it, but not a lot. It's his work ethic, right? One of the top rising CEOs in the United States, but most importantly, top shelf dad. How's fatherhood coming for you?
Jeff, thank you for having me, first off, on your show.
Thank you.
Fatherhood is great. Charlie is now officially 3 years old, which is wild. She started preschool a few weeks ago. Nico, my son, is officially 1 year old. And I'm learning and experiencing this new season and chapter of life that is so extremely challenging, but also the most fulfilling and most purpose-driven part of my 35 years of life so far.
I can relate to that. My Mackenzie was born when I was 30. And it's through no infirmity or any bad personality traits that most of us have. But when you don't have kids, you feel like that you sort of have the privilege of living a life of sort of quiet selfishness that you don't realize that you lived.
Yeah.
And it's not negative selfishness, right? It's just sort of like you wake up, you're married, you had Steph to think about and you to think about and BPN. And then suddenly you realize that you left a hospital where somebody entrusted you with the life of another human being. And you have to have a license to cut hair in the state of Texas. There's no license for parenting.
Right.
So it's transformative, isn't it?
I mean, it's really taught me what servant leadership is and having compassion and truly putting someone first before yourself.
Yeah.
You know, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as an athlete, I think it's really easy to fall into this rhythm and I want to say trap almost of putting yourself first.
Sure.
Above all things and everyone else to get to where you want to be. And in certain chapters and seasons of life, that might be acceptable and okay. But when it comes to being a parent and being married and leading and building a family, I think the only right way is by servant leadership. This is serving your wife or your husband and your children. And that's really what I'm learning. And I've learned over these last 3 years is it is not the Nick Bare show. It never should have been. It never will be. And my role in life now is to serve the people in my life.
I'm curious because you built an incredible brand. You built an incredible company prior to having children. And so you had an element of servant leadership that I think that you had to have to be able to get where you were.
Definitely.
Prior to having children. Did you bring that to parenthood, or has parenthood sort of enhanced that and allowed you to bring it to BPN in a different way?
I think parenthood has unlocked and opened up more of what it truly means to be a leader.
Yeah.
In this last couple months and maybe even these last couple years, I've really started to learn and experience what true leadership is and what it looks like. And that's from leading the team here at BPN.
Yeah.
That's from creating content online. That's from being a father and a husband. And I think that has always been foundational to being an entrepreneur and a business owner and just the way that I was raised. Learning from my mom, my dad, my grandparents, people in my life, even my experience in the military. But as I've gotten older, as you get older, for most people, not everyone, you gain some wisdom. That is the goal. You gain wisdom. And some people, I think, try to ignore the wisdom that life is trying to teach you. And it's our obligation to recognize what life is trying to teach us and adapt and grow and develop. And that's in one of the ways that I'm growing, adapting, and developing is that part of servant leadership. That is the beacon. That is the lighthouse. That is leadership at its core. Leadership is serving other people. And when I say leadership, I think sometimes when I talk about leadership, people instantly assume or think, well, I'm not a business owner. I don't have a team. I don't have employees. I don't actually lead people in my professional environment. But we are all called to be leaders. Whether this is in your community, this is in your family, this is amongst your peers, in school, in work, on a team that you're on. We are called to be leaders in different capacities in life. I think this is applicable to everyone. The magnitude of who and what you are leading and influencing may vary, but I believe we all have the responsibility and the obligation to embrace being leaders.
I so wholeheartedly agree with every single thing that you just said. I was asked recently about my level of exhaustion. This is, don't you get tired of having to lead? And it was asked in the context of coaching in people with really, really big goals heading into this next Olympic cycle. And I referred to it as an obligation. You don't have a choice when you have other people depending on you from a leadership and an empathy standpoint, and leading by example, and leading with proper emotion, and leading with proper consideration for what other people have entrusted you with. It's an obligation. And do you feel, and I'm violating every law of being a lawyer, asking a leading question, do you feel that there are a lot of people who suffer from missed opportunity in life by failing to recognize that beyond making your car payment, paying your property taxes, right, that you lose an opportunity by not recognizing that obligation?
The obligation to lead?
Yeah.
Absolutely. The things you listed off, paying your taxes, making a car payment, paying your mortgage, those aren't things that you can choose to do or not to do. You cannot negotiate with those obligations. I think sometimes we look at life and we just go through life of, what am I required to do? Like, what is the bare minimum that I have to do to get by, to get to the next chapter or get this next promotion? And too many people assume that it is given instead of being earned. I've been at this job for 3 years. I've done what you asked me to do. Why aren't I getting promoted?
Oh,
why is this person getting the job over me? Well, you did the bare minimum, but you're competing against people who have earned the opportunity because they have embraced the leadership opportunity. They've leaned in. They've done the extra work. And we are all being called in different ways to step up.
Yeah.
I think that is the when it comes down to, like, we have to step up and seize the opportunity. Like, when I first got started building this business, there weren't many opportunities. I had to go find and search for the opportunity. That was the hardest part. And then as you start building a business and a brand, the opportunities start becoming more plentiful. And I'm sure you can relate to this. In the beginning, it's what is the next step? I have to go find this next step. Then you get to a point where it's, now I have 1,000 next steps. And you have two options. You can go chase down every next step, or you can be selective and very intentional of which next step is right for right now. But you have to earn that ability and opportunity to have 1,000 next steps. In the beginning, you're searching for one. And that is a learned skill and adaptation of, what do I say yes to? What do I say no to? What is aligned with my core values, my purpose, my beliefs, my goals, and what is not? That's vision. I've talked about this many times on my podcast, but one of the best books I've read in the last year is BE 2.0 by Jim Collins, Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0. Chapter 4 is the vision chapter. And it talks about clearly defining and clarifying your vision, whether it's for your business, your professional career, your personal life. Because if we don't know where we're trying to get to next, it's really hard to make the decisions today for where we want to go, because we don't know. Vision tells us where we want to go, what we want to accomplish. So if you can clearly define your core values, your purpose, and your goals, then what you say yes to and what you say no to is a very easy yes or no. But you have to have those clearly defined. Vision is critical to be a leader for other people and for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are some people, I think, who lean into it intuitively, and then other people who may struggle with it a bit more through no fault of their own. I think some people have a knack for it. And it's my firm belief, having known you for 5 years, that you just simply intuitively have this uncanny knack for knowing exactly what micro pivots to make almost every step of the way. It's been remarkable for me to watch.
I appreciate that. It's interesting you bring that up. I was just listening to a book on my run this morning talking about intuitive leadership. And the way it was explaining that there are people who are naturally born leaders, and then there are people who are developed leaders over time. And I don't believe that one is better than the other, or one has more advantage than the other. In order to develop your leadership abilities and skills, this just comes with exposure, consistency, repetition. But intuitive leadership is actually a very critical component of being a leader. You can have all the data in front of you. I'm sure you can attest to it being a lawyer. Just because you have all the facts doesn't mean you're going to win the case.
Absolutely not.
You have to have intuition. You have to approach a case with objective data and then subjective. There is the data, there's the feel. Intuition, that calibrated gut, that is foundational in being a leader.
Yeah. It's funny. When I was in law school, we were told that one of the golden rules to cross-examination of a witness is never ask a question that you don't know the answer to. And while that sounds great, in the moment, sometimes when you realize that this could make or break your case, intuitively, you have to know when to throw the Hail Mary. And I've done that. I have gotten enough data, enough feedback through body language and through listening to, 45 minutes, an hour of testimony from a witness. I'm like, I have a suspicion that if I ask this question, I might crash and burn, but if the answer is what I think it's going to be the game changer. And so I'll ask a question that I don't actually know the answer to, but I have a strong suspicion. And sometimes that's just the way you have to roll,
Is that one of the aspects that you believe makes you a better lawyer over time, is because that intuition becomes calibrated? I'm assuming like year one of going to court.
Oh.
I mean, throwing those Hail Marys, you're probably like, this is a 50-50 chance of working or not. And then years into it, you're like, I'm going to throw this Hail Mary. There's a 95% chance this is going to end up in my favor. There's a 5% chance that it's not.
That's exactly where it is.
Yeah.
That's exactly where it is. And I remember the first case I did, I ever did, was down in San Antonio, and I had all my opening remarks, all my closing remarks written out, every question I was going to ask written out. And I just sort of had my head down like this. And I laughed because that was 24 years ago, this past May. And the changes have been significant. So that was built through experience. I did not have the intuition. I was not intuitively really, really great at being an attorney on day one. But now I'm on day many, many tens of thousands later. And it's been learned.
Intuition is it's confidence.
Oh, 100%.
You can even parallel that to running. Where if I think about like my first marathon ever, when I went out and ran that, I had no clue. Everyone's like, what do you want to run? I don't know. I have no clue. I have there's no intuition there. There's no confidence there. I'm going to go run, but I don't know what's going to happen. You get a few marathons in, say, I'm going to run within this 45-second window if all things go right. Your intuition and your confidence gets so dialed in because of repetition over time.
Yeah.
You can't have that from the beginning.
No, absolutely. And that brings me actually to a relatively hard transition, hard meaning an abrupt transition. You refer to doing the minimum and people confusing the minimum with enough or confusing the minimum with excellence. I believe that sometimes people are doing the minimum not because they're choosing to do the minimum, but because they don't know that what they're doing is the minimum. You came to me in October the 2nd, 2020. Yes, I looked it up because I had the ability to go back and look at workouts. And October the 2nd, 2020 is the first run I ever assigned you. And you were a 324 marathoner at the time. What are your memories from those first couple of weeks when you showed up?
Before working with you, I thought that running was a physical skill, but I thought that running was so much more mental than it was physical, and I'll explain. When I ran that 324 marathon, so my marathon timeline goes 3:57 to 4:15 to 3:24 to 2:56 to 2:48 to 2:39.
Yeah.
And when I went from 3:57 to 4:15, that's when I really was frustrated with lack of progress. So I went and trained for my first Ironman. And that was Ironman Florida. And I ran a 4-hour, I believe 4-minute marathon, I believe, at that Ironman. And I left that race thinking, if I can run a 4-hour marathon after 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, I can definitely run a sub 3-hour marathon. So that was then the goal. That was the target. And when I towed the line of the Austin Marathon to run that sub 3 marathon, I knew I wasn't in sub 3 shape. I knew I was not in shape.
That's interesting. Okay.
And I wasn't able to hit my splits in the lead up to. I didn't put the volume in. I wasn't truly committed to the work that was required. But when I towed the line for that race, I told myself, this is so much more of a mental battle than a physical battle. I'm just going to grit through this. My will get me across the finish line in less than 3 hours. So I went out at like a 6:25 pace.
Oh my gosh.
I saw this guy and I heard him talking about he was going for sub 3. I was like, I'm just going to hold on to this guy for as long as possible. And the first like 5 or 6 miles into the Austin Marathon, it's hills. I got 6 miles into the Austin Marathon, which comes back into downtown across the bridge.
Yep.
And I'm crossing that bridge dying. And I realized then there's no way I'm holding this for another 20 miles. And I crashed and burned. I missed my goal by 24 minutes because I thought I could mentally will my way through a marathon. I think there's certain physical efforts you can. An ultra marathon, for example, you can will your way and get across the finish line to just finish. You can will yourself mentally across the finish line of a marathon just to finish. But to hit a certain goal that you're not physically prepared for, your mind can only take you so far. So I learned after that race, and I talked to Chad Wright about this on the podcast I recently had him on.
And if I may interrupt,
Yep.
I was going to let you know that pure happenstance, and I didn't even know this is where the conversation was going. I was listening to that podcast episode on the way over here today.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And I was like, cue up Chad Wright
Yes.
the minute you started talking about this.
Yeah. So Chad was talking about, on the episode, one of the ways that you build confidence and mental toughness is through the physical preparation. You just don't show up mentally tough and go accomplish all of these things. You show up mentally tough because you put in the work to get you to that point, prepared to go battle and fight. When I ran that 3:24 marathon, I realized I didn't have the confidence or the mental toughness to run sub 3 because I wasn't willing or didn't give myself enough time to put in the physical work and preparation. So when I started working with you, I almost, if you will, abandoned everything that I thought I knew. And I was like, I'm going to put all of my trust into Jeff. Let Jeff take me across this finish line in sub 3 hours. And that's what I did. I was like, I realize the way that I've been training isn't the right way. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm teachable and I want to learn. I think as a leader, as an athlete, as a person in general, when you humble yourself and you tell yourself, I don't know anything, I'm going to be mentored and coached by someone who does, and let them teach me, let them help me. That's where I was when I started working with you. And I was like, I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to, if Jeff tells me to run 7 miles, I'm not going to run 5. I'm not going to run 9. I'm going to run 7. If he says my heart rate has to be between 140 and 145 beats per minute, I'm going to make sure it's 140 to 145 beats per minute. If I go out and I miss a split on my 800s for a Yasso 800 workout, I'm not going to tell Jeff I hit all my splits. I'm going to tell him I missed my splits and today was not a good workout. And by humbling myself and realizing that I knew nothing and put all my trust into you as a coach, I then went and ran a year later 256.
And that really hits for me because, one of the things that I've said for years, whether it's speaking at high school coaching conventions, whether it's just visiting with a podcaster, is I think that there's this notion that there's this one-way relationship between a coach and an athlete, specifically between Jeff Cunningham and my athletes, which is I'm the teacher and everybody else is the student. And I would say that I've learned as much or more from the people who I coach, right? Than they have learned from me. And I mean that with the highest level of sincerity. You taught me so much more about being able to believe in somebody, about being able to differentiate negativism and positivism and pessimism and realism. Because I got to tell you, when I found out that you were going to show up to practice, and I did a little bit of research, and I looked and I thought to myself, this is either going to go really well or really bad. This guy does not know what he's got himself into. I was burdened by the sort of experiences of the past in dealing with coaching people with big muscles. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and call it like it is. I mean, I was a skinny college distance runner, right? I was 5'7.5", 127 pounds at my race weight, running 100 miles a week in college, right?
Yeah.
So you show up and I think to myself, oh, here we go. It took 2 workouts and I thought, this guy's got something here, man, you know? And so it was the consistency. Every workout, every week, every month that went by, it was just consistency. And it's funny because you fast forward to December 2021, the first time I ever came on your podcast. And I just sitting there and we were talking about what it takes to be good. And I just sort of uttered the phrase that now this podcast is named after, which is just be consistently good.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to just be occasionally great. And so you have consistently good over occasionally great. And then you have go one more. That's been the rallying cry for an entire movement in the fitness industry. And that is BPN.
Yeah.
Is this almost sort of a bizarre today, an inevitable like collision between those two thought processes?
I think they complement each other very well.
Yeah.
I'll go into that here in a little bit, but I got to say this before I forget. I was listening to this podcast. It was a John Maxwell podcast last week. And I think you are a great example of what I'm about to explain right here as a coach and as an individual and as a leader. This was a leadership podcast talking about, as a leader, there are times when you have to push people. There's times when you have to pull people, and there's times to be patient. And this was one of the best podcasts I've listened to in a long time. And it talked about like when we push people, we are pushing people, we are telling them to do something because we're trying to get them to perform. And oftentimes when you push people, there has to be a level of candor. Like, hey, I know you're better than what you're doing right now. And I know that you're going to get over here. So I'm going to tell you, this is what you have to do to go run a sub 3-hour marathon. I'm pushing you. Pulling someone is asking. And this is compassion. I think you are a great example of having compassion for individuals and athletes because you want to develop them. So you're pushing people towards performance. You're pulling them towards development. And then it's having the patience. And the way that John Maxwell explained patience, it's not just waiting, but what are we doing while we're waiting for someone to be pushed or pulled? So I wanted to share that because I think you are a great example of a well-executed balance as a leader of pushing, pulling, and having patience. And when it comes to go one more and consistently good over occasionally great, earlier in the conversation, you brought up doing the minimum. And I think there's a few different ways to look at the minimum. There's like the underperformer, the underachiever who wants to do the bare minimum. And then there is the minimum effective dose that is appropriate for the training at that point in time. And I think where a lot of athletes really benefit from coaching and mentorship and guidance is that everyone thinks more is better. That is the occasionally great as opposed to the consistently good. So it's like, hey, I'm going to hop into a marathon prep. I've been running 20 miles a week. I'm going to go to run 70 miles a week and be this stud so I can show my Strava stats to everyone, as opposed to, hey, let's do the minimum effective dose for this point in the build and prep so we can build your fitness to where it needs to be. And I know you can go run 10 miles a day. I know you can, but I'm telling you to run 7, and we will build into it. That is consistently good, not the occasionally great. Consistently good. Just hit 7 miles a day. Okay, now we're going to run 8 miles a day. Now we're going to run 10 miles a day. Now we're going to run 11 miles a day. We're going to build into it. I'm not asking you to do the bare minimum. I'm asking you to do the minimum effective dose for right now, for where you're at, so we can get to where you want to be.
And what's amazing about that is with 95% of the people who come to me pushing them and motivating them and telling them, chastising them about not trying hard enough, about not doing enough, typically is not the problem. And I always tell people, I'm not Coach Gas Pedal. Many days I'm Coach Brake Pedal. I am in the world of just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
And I learned that very early in my legal career. Just because you can object to the question, you might annoy the judge more than what you would gain even if you're right. Just because you can file that motion to be really annoying to the opposing lawyer, what's the end effect? Have a brake pedal.
Yeah.
And so then when I talk to my runners, I say, hey, I know you can do more. Your hamstring is a little dicey today. You told me that you had 2 projects due and you worked until 10 p.m. 4 nights in a row this week. Maybe we shouldn't do that. Let's just cut the run at 11 miles and let's show up rested and ready. Coach Brake Pedal intervening. And I find myself doing that a lot. Right? But at the same time, trying to inspire people to new heights who may not have considered that they're maybe more capable than they are. It's a delicate balance, right?
Do you have problems with people adhering to the plan? More so, not necessarily that they're skipping workouts or missing runs, but they're doing more than you're asking them to do.
I have that and doing ill-advised things in an attempt to accelerate Mother Nature's process regarding the way an aerobic system is built out, regarding the way you could logically progress, right? And I always tell everybody that Nick Bare ruined it for everybody, chopping 28 minutes off of his marathon PR because, you ever seen those commercials with a little print at the bottom that said, these results are not typical, weight loss drugs and things like that. That's what I always want to put next to your 28, minute PR. It's like, these results are not typical, but you're not typical. And we're going to get into that sort of as we progress in this conversation. And one of the things is that you succeeded. And in my notes right here, I have it in boldface capital letters. You go from 324 to 256 to 248 to 239. You went from, peddling supplements out of a basement to having this world-class headquarters with a gym that's nicer than most Gold's gyms I've ever been into, right? But there was a lot that went into that in between. And so when people say he's a success, Nick Bare is a success. I want to be Nick Bare when I grow up. How does Nick Bare view success in your world?
That's a great question. That has evolved over time. Success for me used to be striving and accomplishing. And I could talk about this all day. This is a slippery slope.
Let's start sliding, baby. Let's go.
This is a slippery slope because I think people, if you don't have a very clear purpose of why you're going after what you're going after, it will never be enough. And we see it all the time. People go from race to race to race. They go from business to business to business. They go from thing to thing to thing. And it sounds very cliche and stereotype, but it's so true. You know, you tell yourself, if I just get to this point, I will be happy. If I can make this much money, I will be happy. If I can get this car, I will be happy. If I can live in this house, I will be happy. And I will tell you from personal experience, there are a lot of things that will bring glimpses of happiness, but not fulfillment and joy. And with each additional strive, it doesn't necessarily bring more fulfillment and joy. The way that I used to define success was more. This is one of the reasons that go on more has evolved for me over time.
Yeah.
Go on more used to be an action and an action alone. Go run one more mile. Go make $1 more million in your business. Go work one more hour. Go hire one more employee. Part of go on more is an action, but it's much larger than that. Go on more is an outcome. Sometimes you achieve an experience, go on more, by actually doing less. It's like, hey, I want to keep succeeding. I want to keep growing. In order for me to keep experiencing this growth, whether in life and fitness and business, maybe I need to take one more rest day. Maybe I need to prioritize sleep. Maybe I need to prioritize recovery. Maybe I need to prioritize my family. Doesn't feel like an action of going more in the immediate, but the outcome is going more over the long term. So the way that I used to define success was more. I wanted more followers. I wanted a faster marathon time. I wanted more money. I wanted more public notoriety. And as I experienced and achieved more, I didn't feel more successful. I didn't feel more joy. I didn't feel more or experience more fulfillment. Now, success for me, this is years and years of just work and reflection and the way that I would describe wisdom. Success is true joy. It's having a real driven purpose.
Yeah.
It's being able to be content with where you're at, but also ambitiously driven to pursue a purpose. And that purpose for me is not money driven. It is not followers. It is not views. It is none of those things. And someone might be listening to this saying, come on, man, let's be honest. No, when I say that, it's the truth. For me, success is, it's for right now, my priorities in life. It's God, it's family, and then it's everything else. And within that bucket of everything else, that is business, that is my fitness, those are my purpose goals. It's everything else outside of God and family. And if I can glorify God, and I can really work on my relationship with Jesus Christ, and I can continue to work on my marriage with Steph and being in a really great place, and I can love on my kids, and I can show my kids what it looks and feels like to be a son of God and to be a dedicated, loving, committed husband and to be a servant leader to the people in my life, that is success. That for me is success. And it took me a long time to learn and realize that. And I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this podcast right now and they don't define success that way. And I can promise those people, if you define success by worldly things, money, how impressive you can be, how relevant you are, you will never fill that success bucket because your bucket has a million holes in it. And every time you fill it, it keeps draining out. It took me a long time to learn that.
this makes me really emotional because I agree with you. The biggest dopamine hits that I get, like when I got the text message from Kenzie when she told Angelique and me that the film that she worked on was entered into a film festival and they won an award at a film festival. Dopamine hit I get when I get a text message from Angelique, where she just says, "I love you." Got a call from one of my ex-high school athletes, who's sort of almost been like a second daughter to me. And I found out that she was being inducted into the High School Hall of Fame, where I coached her. And she wanted me to stand up and say a few words. And you realize that you succeeded because I have an adult relationship with a young adult who's wildly successful working at Nike right now. And I thought to myself, this is what success is those feelings that you get of the connectedness from a point of positivism and love and genuine respect with the people around you. And it has nothing to do with any of those relationships netting me money. I don't get any fame out of my sweet daughter winning a film festival. That felt so successful as a father, like in that moment, for instance.
Yeah. I recently heard this quote, and I'll paraphrase it. And it explained how most people build their life to really carve out this impressive resume. And where we should be focused is in guiding our eulogy. It's not like what we accomplished and what we did, but how did we make people feel? And how are people going to be speaking on our behalf once we are gone and dead?
Yes. Angelique and I coached at the high school level for a long time. And one thing that we always learned in our adult relationships with all of the kids that we coached all the way back to 2004 was that they're never going to remember the specifics of a workout, might not even remember the specifics of any track meet they ran in, but they're always going to remember how we made them feel forever.
I mean, that's what makes you so special as a coach. I've worked with a lot of coaches over my lifetime, from when I was in middle school, high school, to when I was in the military. I've had mentors, I've had leaders, I've had coaches, I've had a lot of people in my life. And I'll be very honest, and this is not to be disrespectful, but I don't remember many of them. But I remember the way certain people made me feel. And you make people feel a certain way because you care, you are trusted, and you are competent. And I've never experienced a coach like you who feels the success and failure of an athlete just as much as they do. Like when I crossed the finish line of CIM and I ran 2:39, and I was so proud of that run. I was so proud of that run. I could tell that the feelings that I was experiencing, you felt too.
Damn right.
And that meant so much to me. You are so invested into your athletes, into their life, into their wins, into their losses. That's what really separates you as a coach from so many other coaches, in my opinion, is that you truly care. You make people feel a certain way. Life is all about relationships. It's all about, that's all life is. It's relationships. If we take relationships out of life, there's not much left. There's not much.
I'll never forget, fast forwarding from 2023, CIM, which is where you ran 2:39, where even I was, I don't want to say I was surprised, but 2:39 got a little warm toward the end of that race. And that was a remarkable performance. And I will never forget.
The best run of my life.
Best run of your life. And in that same race, Michael Duggan from Bat City Track Club, was the last person in the United States to make the field for the Olympic trials. He had to run 2:18. He ran 2:17:59, dipped at the line.
Wow.
Sat out there, had a nice cold beer with Mike, with his college teammates. And he just looked at me and he goes, I can't believe I just did that. I says, believe it, baby. Believe it, baby. We're going to the big dance. Fast forward, Mike had the best race of his life actually at the Olympic trials. But I would have to say that the rest of the Olympic trials race was really, really difficult for me emotionally because things didn't break our way. Just some really freak weird things happened. And I'll never forget pulling into the parking garage at the hotel after the race. And I want to say that Jordy Ammons was actually with me in the car. And I actually just started crying. Why? Because I was just so emotionally invested in the race and just so sad and frustrated for a couple of people who had just astonishingly bad luck in that race. People stepping on plastic lane reflectors and breaking their foot in the middle of the race.
Yeah.
Really? And I get so emotionally invested in it because if you don't care, quit. If you don't care, find something else to do. Because the day that you quit caring, then the people around you are not going to get your best.
There's some coaches out there who are pursuing certain athletes and coaching to build their resume, their career.
Rubbish.
And I know you're the opposite, where there are certain coaches I know who they want to see their athletes succeed because they know it makes them look successful. And there's certain coaches who, when their athletes fail, they're mad because they know it makes them look bad. But you are the complete opposite, where that is servant leadership. You could care less what it says about you as a coach. It is all about, how do I help this person, this athlete, this individual accomplish what they want to accomplish, get their goal done. And it's there's certain coaches or certain people will say they have this purpose, but then their actions don't align with their purpose. Your actions are so identical to what you say your purpose is. It's one of the reasons you are a great friend to me, and I respect you so much as a person.
Trust. It's foundational for me in every meaningful relationship that I've got. And so when you look at the word trust, it has so much meaning. It's heavy, actually, in my opinion. I believe that I am what I coach. And what would have happened after October the 2nd, 2020, if I had talked the talk, but then I had failed either through my actions or otherwise to prove to you that I was actually walking the walk? Where do you think we would sit right now 5 years later?
We probably wouldn't be sitting at the same table. I value in my life personally, my relationships and people that I'm close to. I think that's one of the things you have to be very careful with in life is, who do you allow in your very inner circle? Who do you align with? Do their core values align with yours? Does their purpose align with yours? Do their goals align with yours? Because if you allow the wrong people into your very closely knit inner circle, you might end up becoming a person that you are not very proud of.
Oof.
And even if, while you've coached me over these years, if we would have missed the goal for some of these races, I would have kept coming back to you to be my coach, because I would have known that it wasn't a coaching problem. It wasn't a trust problem. I would have had to turn that finger away from you and point it back at me. What did I not do right? What did I do wrong? That's how important trust is. I think trust is easy sometimes when things are going right.
Oh, you ain't kidding.
Trust is hard when things are going wrong. And it's really easy to say, it's this person's fault. It's this thing's fault. This is happening in my life. This is why this isn't happening. No, let's take a second. Let's look at this big picture wise. Is this a trust issue, Or is this a me issue? But from those early days, I had complete trust in you as a coach, as a friend, as a mentor. Trust in relationships, hand in hand.
I'm about to stir up some controversy here. You realize that what you just said has recently become one of the least American things that you could say.
Which part?
Being willing to turn the lens and look at yourself rather than blaming somebody else for your failures.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have to be careful as a coach because you have to have a reasonable level of assurance through both peer review and self-reflection and the empiric data that you've amassed over time that you know what you're doing. But once you do, and when you're coaching athletes, it's really interesting because at some point, there has to be some sort of onus. And whether that's as a boss or a CEO or a parent, we love to do the emotionally easy thing, which is somebody else is the problem, something else is the problem on all this, rather than saying, what could I have done better? And so when my athletes don't run well, one of the first things I do is I go back and I look and I say, what did I screw up? And they're like, oh, coach, nothing. You did. No, let's look. I mean, were the paces wrong? Was the volume wrong and all this? Because I'm always willing to engage in self-reflection rather than just be this obstinately arrogant, obtuse person, right? And so I think it's really tough. But I think it allows for so much growth for anybody to be willing to turn the lens at themselves, at least intermittently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it requires two things, humility and accountability. As we go through a process, sometimes you have to make yourself smaller to be able to see the bigger picture. And that is humility. You know, realizing whenever I go into any prep, I think sometimes that confidence is mistaken for ego, and they are very different things. I have a lot of confidence in a lot of parts of my life. And sometimes people think that is ego, and that is not ego. Because I will very quickly humble myself, and I will acknowledge and accept what I don't know. If I don't know something, I'm the first to admit it. You know, I'm in an Ironman prep right now, and I am by no means an Ironman triathlon training expert. But I love being humbled and learning along the way. Humility is such a just important trait for everyone to learn how to adopt. Ego, as Ryan Holiday says, ego is the enemy. Humility is so important. And then accountability. To being able to hold yourself, it's really easy to hold yourself accountable. Like I said, when things are going well, you wake up, you're excited to go run 9 miles. Yeah, I'm holding myself accountable. I'm going to go run 9 miles, come back, take a photo of my watch, post it, let everyone know I ran 9 miles today. I woke up before you woke up. Cool. But on the days you don't want to, or when workouts aren't going the way they're supposed to, or when life gets complicated, and you now have a newborn, or work becomes more demanding, or there's other priorities in your life that should take priority, that's where you really have to slide accountability in there. And accountability is interesting because it can go both ways. You know, I see so many people, and as a father to 2 young kids, you know, this becomes very challenging where you wake up and you say, I'm going to knock out this big run this morning. And maybe your kids didn't sleep. Maybe your wife or your partner is struggling, needs some support. Accountability isn't saying, bye family, I'm going to knock out this run that I said I was going to do. No, it's sitting back and saying to yourself, where am I am I supposed to serve? Who am I supposed to serve right now? Is it myself or is it the people in my life? And that becomes a really hard spot to be in sometimes because you want to be really ambitiously driven to go accomplish these things. You know what is required to accomplish these things, but life happens.
Mm.
And sometimes accountability is not showing up and doing what you know you have to do. That is part of the process to accomplish a certain thing. It is doing the opposite, to honor your other responsibilities and your other commitments in life.
Yeah, I've had 2-3 athletes recently lose a parent. And they would send me a text message and say, hey, I'm sorry. If you notice on my workouts that there's been a few runs that I haven't done and all this, but I promise I'll make them up. And I just interrupt them there. And I say, no. We're not going to worry about the frivolity of running. We're not going to worry about your, quote, commitment and adherence to process on the running side of things. Go handle what you need to handle that's obligatory, that's necessary in your life. We'll worry about this later. But they apologized for not meeting their quote unquote responsibility on the running side of things. I'm like, listen, at that moment, that wasn't a responsibility at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And then it was a sense of relief on their end.
Yeah. I've had to learn this over the years as well. Just because you put a race or a goal on the calendar doesn't mean that you can't pivot. And I was so hard-headed.
Could you say that louder for the people in the back, please?
Exactly. Like there's no problem with having to change the plan.
Yeah.
You know, like I think back to so many times. I thank Steph for putting up with a lot of my crap over the years. I prioritized for a long time my personal goals, my fitness goals. I prioritized those over a lot of other things in my life, specifically my wife. And I used to think this was funny and I used to joke about this, and now I just feel stupid about it. And I think back to our honeymoon. We just got married. We were in Cabo for a few days for our honeymoon. I started training for my Ironman a week before our honeymoon. I was on the treadmill on our honeymoon in Cabo while Steph was at the pool running 14 to 16 miles to knock out my training because I prioritized the Ironman over the honeymoon. And I look back thinking, I thought I was so committed then, but it was the opposite of commitment. I was committed to the wrong thing. I love chasing down a goal and getting after it. I love putting in the work. Don't get me wrong. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. But not at the expense of things in my life that are more important. It's okay to change the plan.
Right. And, you know, I think that it's a control thing too.
Definitely.
Know? Yeah. And, you know, talking about control and talking about sort of being overly helicopterish or maybe just having your grasp just a little too tight on everything. What I've noticed in the way you conduct yourself at BPM, because I have the luxury, the way the setup is in the office, right, is the creative team is in the middle, and so many of the people who are a lot of the heart and soul of this company all work within a few feet of each other.
Yeah.
Right. But what resonated for me last Friday night was we were at the premiere of the film for the Backyard Ultra, right?
Yep.
And you stood up in front of a packed theater. I don't know how many people there, but it was unbelievable. Okay. And you said, I haven't seen this. And I think there were probably a couple of people there. Oh, come on. You know that the boss reviewed this and said, no, we're not doing that. Cut that out, blah, 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 because this is going to be premiered to the world simultaneous to us sitting there watching it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And what struck me was your ability at that moment, I realized, to delegate with confidence. You said, go do this project. And George and Ian knocked it out in a way that was so stratospherically brilliant. I would just sat there in stunned silence when the credits started rolling. And then I look at what Hope does at the events, whether it's in the Chicago Marathon shakeout runs to hosting the Ultra, and you look at what you tell Tony, I don't want to hear about the labor pains, just show me the baby. Take care of this over here. What gives you the confidence to be able to delegate so much of what is going to be on the fore of what people are going to judge BPN on, and just say, go do it. But I trust you, Ian, George, Hope, Tony, Trey, Josh. I trust you. Where's that come from?
First off, I have the right people on the team.
That's evident.
And I can't do their jobs. I can't. Like they are, the people that I have on this team, they are better at their jobs than I will ever be.
But a lot of CEOs don't see it that way.
No. In the beginning of scaling BPN, I wanted to see and review everything. And it was easier for me to control. There's certain parts of my life that I am hyper controlled with. But when it comes to leading this organization, I've learned that the way people grow and they develop is through trust and by ownership. Like when someone is given a role here at BPN, I expect them to truly own it. It is theirs. This is their baby, to see the whole thing through. They own it. I don't. So who am I to come in at the 1 yard line and say, I want to see this, change this, change that? No. I'm just going to delegate, give them full responsibility. I trust them. I don't have to get involved. And I think that has helped people grow a lot in their roles. But that trust also allows them to truly own it. It's not that I am working on part of Nick's project. No, I'm working on my project. I had this philosophy here at BPN. Like if I ask anyone here that works in this organization, who do you work for? I don't want anyone to say, I work for Nick. I work for BPN. They work for BPN, but they work for the boss. I don't want to be someone that they work for. The team here at BPN, they work with me. It is collaborative. We are a team. I am on the same level of this team. We work together. No one works for me. They work with me. And that small mindset shift, it goes a long way. But more importantly, as a leader, when you truly accept that and live that, it allows you to delegate and hand off trust more easily.
It requires an extraordinary amount of security, an extraordinary amount of lack of temperamentalness, if that's a word, right? And restraint that I think ends up allowing people to really flourish. That's my opinion.
Now, don't get me wrong. There's parts of my life that during certain seasons, I'm extremely controlled.
Well, as well you should be.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I'm in a prep, I am dialed. I control all the variables as much as I can. I try not to let it affect other parts of my life, but sometimes there's bleed over, right? But when it comes to sleep and diet and training and rest and recovery and what I say yes to and what I say no to, all that is very controlled. Like I'm in a prep right now. We're halfway through this Ironman prep, and I say no to about 99% of the things that pop up in my life right now. I'm not going to dinners. I'm not going on podcasts or interviews. I'm not traveling. I'm doing very little except for focusing on the prep, my family, the series that we're creating and filming, the team here at BPN. I say no to almost everything. So the things I say yes to, I can actually go all in on.
And when it comes to saying yes, and when it comes to this delegation, and when it comes to the trust that you do have in the people who you carefully have in your circle, loyalty, I think, is a big thing. For me, loyalty, is also one of the biggest parts of the relationships that I have, along with trust. I'll never forget being at dinner with you in Nashville. I want to say it was November 2023. And we were sitting there at the table having dinner, and we started talking about loyalty. And I don't even remember why it came up and how important it is. And we were talking about the fact that loyalty has to be central, or a lot of times trust gets destroyed. Where does loyalty fit to you, and sort of what are your boundaries, right, when it comes to that, and what are your expectations of others?
I think loyalty is like trust, where it's really easy to be loyal to someone or something when things are going right. And it's really hard to predict how loyal someone is until times get tough and challenging. Like, of the easy times here, it's all relative, but the easier times here at BPN, it's been easy for people to be loyal. When things have been more challenging and things get harder, and we've gone through some hard seasons, you find out who's truly loyal and who's not. There's a lot of people who are willing to jump ship and turn on you very quickly, just like trust. I remember that. I am a firm believer that you can and should forgive everybody. Everyone deserves forgiveness, but not everyone deserves to be trusted. And I have people in my life during hard seasons who have stuck with me.
Yeah.
They are my ride or dies. Extremely loyal. And I remember those people. And I always will. And I will take the shirt off my back for those people. But it's really hard to assess loyalty without hard times, because it's really easy to be loyal during easy times.
It's just like everything, it's a situation where if running's going great, it's easy to be loyal to your coach and trust your coach. Things are going great, it's easy to have trust and loyalty in your marriage, right? If things are going great in business, profits are up, the employees are all flourishing, it's easy. But when things get rocky and things get rough, to me, like I always tell people, that's when you need your coach more, not less, right? When things are tough, that's when you need your spouse more, who should be your best friend in the whole world, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? Hands down. You need them more, not less.
Yeah.
That's the way I see life.
I agree with that. I mean, trust, loyalty, relationships, these are the things that we need to focus on in life. I mean, I know so many runners who have hired 10, 12, 15 coaches over the years because they go through a prep, doesn't end up the way they want to, they go to a new coach. Go through a prep, doesn't end up the way they want to, go to a new coach. I just haven't found the right coach yet. I just haven't found the right business yet. I just haven't found the right workplace yet. How many people do you know in life who jump from job to job to job? It's like, I just haven't found someone who gets me or understands me yet. Maybe you have a loyalty and trust issue, and maybe they're not the problem. Maybe it's you.
Oh, we're back to turning the lens?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that when we have trusted mentors and we have trusted confidants, I think that that's really, really important. And I think almost everybody has had somebody in their life who has taught them something, mentored them, guided them, led them in a way that's transformative or whatever. And you're a mentor, but our relationship, frankly, has been very, very symbiotic, I would say, over the last 5 years.
I agree. Yeah.
I've watched what you've done with business, and I've thought really, really deeply about a lot of the ways that I am trying to conduct myself outside of just the nuts and bolts of telling people to go run tempo runs, right? I find myself repeating things that you've said because I've internalized them. The other day on Instagram, I had a runner who was, a single parent, has 2 kids, playing hockey, running 90 miles a week, running at an incredibly elite level. And I was like, if it matters to you, you will make time. Because I have some people that say, well, I don't have time, blah, blah, blah. And possibly there really is time. Maybe it doesn't matter enough.
Yeah.
Relative to how much you claim it matters. And I think that's an important caveat here. How do you view mentorship when it comes to running BPN, being a parent, and being an athlete who hired a coach, like I always like to make fun of myself, who has a bad accent and a pickup truck?
How do I look at mentorship in terms of people mentoring me?
Yeah, and you mentoring others.
Yeah. So there's this verse in the Bible, and off the top of my head, I can't remember what book or chapter it's from, but it says, it might be Ecclesiastes, when the axe is dull and the edge unsharpened, more strength is needed, but more skill is required. And right now, I am in a season of life where I am sharpening my axe in terms of preparing for this next chapter of life, being a parent, a father, a husband, being a leader in the business. And I believe there's a time and place to be swinging your axe and getting after it. And there's a time and place where you need to sit back. That's what I'm using this prep for right now. Sit back and do some work on yourself, sharpen your axe to get ready for the next fight, the next battle, the next season. It's reflection. It's work on yourself. It's development. All right, the axe is sharp again. Let's get back out there. When I'm looking for a mentor for myself, for me, and I'll say this very humbly, I've been building BPN now for 13 years. And I built these platforms that millions of people have subscribed to. I've shared my entire life. I've documented everything. And sometimes, quite often, when people come into my life alongside of me, I have a lot of yes men. A lot of people who will tell me exactly what I want to hear.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because I know what I know. I don't know what I don't know. I don't want someone coming in to help and support me who's just going to tell me what I want to hear.
Yeah.
I want someone in my life who's going to tell me what I need to hear. And I believe and this is why I say this humbly, I believe that some people are afraid and intimidated to do that with me, most likely because they are on payroll within my organization. When I'm looking for a really solid mentor, I want someone to give it to me straight. Call me out on my BS. Tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear. I was having a conversation with someone who's a mentor of mine about a week and a half ago, and we were talking on a run, and he called me out. They called me out hard on this run for something that I wasn't doing. And it caught me by surprise. And I actually had to sit on it for a minute while we were running, and we said nothing. And I acknowledged, I was, dude, I needed that in my life. I need someone who's going to tell me exactly what I want to hear. That wasn't what I wanted to hear. That's what I needed to hear. And as hard as that is to hear sometimes and receive, that's the only way you're going to get better. You need those people in your life who aren't going to sugarcoat it, who are going to be very honest with you, and not honest with you to tear you down or tell you what you're doing wrong, but to pull you with compassion, to develop you, to ask you to go there. And when I'm looking for a guide, a mentor, a coach, that's what I want. I want someone who's going to give it to me straight, not sugarcoat it, and tell me exactly what I need to hear, as hard as it might be. It's like, hey, you're not showing up as the husband that you can. You need to be spending more time at home. You haven't fully surrendered everything to God. You think you have, but you haven't. When someone calls you out on all those things, it's, oh man, like, wow. It's like that hurts a little bit, but let me sit with that for a little bit. Yeah, I needed that. That's good.
And is it hard to differentiate sometimes criticism and attack for productive mentorship?
It can be.
Yeah.
And that's why I have a few people in my life that I will place a lot of value into what they say.
Yeah.
I don't place a lot of value into what a lot of people say in terms of criticizing or speaking into me.
Oh, yeah.
Because I get a lot of it.
You and I have both lived that over the last 5 years, and we don't need to expound upon that any further.
Exactly. But there are certain people in my life that I know when they call me out, I need to listen.
Sure.
There's other people who, when they call me out or they criticize me, it's just like, it's like a fly flying around me. It's like, get out of here, go away.
Yeah.
But there's certain people who, when they speak up, you drop everything and you listen up and you open up both ears.
Yeah. Fascinating. I think that what's lost on a lot of people, and I didn't even really realize that, and I've come to internalize over the last couple of years, is that sometimes the mentor also becomes the mentee in a relationship with another person. And I think that I realized it in my relationship with you.
Mm-hmm.
When people will assume, oh, well, you taught Nick to run. I'm like, well, I mean, we cleaned some things up, and I helped Nick become better. You know, I came in, I was the hired gun, got into the 256. It was great. But then what happened was I realized I'm learning so much from this guy about structuring my days, about being adherent to process, about being completely faithful to your core values and not coming off of them. And so you've mentored me, you know, and I've mentored you, and that's what I meant by the symbiotic relationship.
It's a true relationship. It's a dialogue. It's a back and forth.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I love it, and that's the way I view leadership as a whole. Like, leadership is not one person talking to the masses. It's not even one person talking to another person. It is a conversation. It is a back and forth. It is truly a dialogue. And I completely agree where the mentor-mentee relationship can go both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the best mentor-mentee relationships do go both ways. You both grow through the process. I mean, if I'm a mentor to 10 people, for example, and I'm not growing at all, I'm not getting any better at being a leader or a mentor. But the best part about leadership is that when you invest time into individuals, and you can't invest a lot of time into a lot of individuals. I mean, when you invest time into individuals, you grow through that journey and that process. You both do.
And if you're not, and you just perceive yourself as a mentor, and then you have 15 or 20 sycophants out there, it's my opinion that it breeds arrogance and self-aggrandizement and a lot of negative attributes in you, perhaps unintentionally. And I'll say you, I mean the generic person.
Yeah, you have a wall up where you're not willing to be teachable and coachable yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And every person in every situation and circumstance is unique that you can learn from. And if it's a one-way relationship and you put a wall up where all the response and feedback comes back and it bounces off that wall, well, then you can't help the next person in any more of a meaningful way. And you're probably just running this boilerplate blueprint across. I mean, this is like the playbook for most like online entrepreneur coaches. It's like the boilerplate blueprint of here's this success program to get to 8-9 figures in revenue.
Yeah.
That's not mentorship. That's not coaching. It's not even a relationship. That's just selling a program.
I'm sitting here today grounded in gratitude. And I am always thankful and always ever cognizant of who and what has helped me get where I am today. I never try to fall prey and try to ensure that I do not fall victim to the notion that I've done it all myself. How big is gratitude in your world?
No, it's everything.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as self-made. No one's self-made. It's funny, over the years when I was younger, I'd follow a lot of these self-made entrepreneurs, and I wanted to be that. I want to be a self-made entrepreneur. I don't need anyone else. I don't want anyone else to take away or share my success with. And then you realize over time, you don't accomplish anything by yourself. There's no such thing as self-made. I mean, at its fundamental core, we are God-created, God-made individuals.
Sure.
And then as we grow and develop over time, the only reason we are growing and developing is because of the relationships and the people in our lives. So I'm very grateful for every person who has been a part of this journey with me, who has believed in me, who has invested in me, who I can trust, who is loyal. I sit in the sauna at night and I do 15-minute sauna sessions, and I hop in the cold plunge, and I sit there and I just think about all of the things and the people that I am so grateful for. And you have to recognize that, because if you don't recognize that, that's ego. That's a dangerous and destructive ego.
Well, I'm grateful for sitting here today. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for BPN. I'm grateful for everybody who is giving me the gift to be able to do the only thing that I'm good at, which is talking a lot, right? But all jokes aside, I'm personally filled with gratitude to have gotten to have this conversation to kick off what I hope is a truly meaningful, fulfilling podcast for a whole lot of people to be able to get something out of that's going to spur them on to great heights, that's going to spur them on to self-actualization, whatever it is you're seeking. I'm just grateful to be able to have that opportunity, and I'm grateful for you.
I appreciate you, Jeff. I mean, I know this podcast is going to be such a great resource and tool for people, not just for runners. I mean, running obviously, and running efficiency and mechanics and structuring workouts, but the parallels between being a good person and applying that to training and physical fitness and readiness and performance, they have to be balanced out. And I think you are such a great promoter of the balance between those two. And I'm so grateful for you. You've been so helpful to me and the BPN team in fitness and business and community. I mean, man, like, you helped me shave off significant time on my marathon. And I've learned so much of what I've learned about running.
Yeah.
And have shared with the world has come from you. Again, my running has not been self-developed and self-made. It has been guided and instructed and developed through your coaching. So I appreciate you.
Well, and I'm coaching in a space where we're always in search of getting better. We're always in search of having things, for lack of a better way of putting it, available to us. And BPN's investment in the endurance space and full commitment to excellence, I think, is landscape changing. And it takes vision, like you talked about, commitment, the ability to delegate, the ability to have gratitude, all of the stuff that we talked about. And so with that, I am excited about kicking this project off. And so what I want to tell everybody here is, go be good. But like I always say, be consistently good. Coach out.